Hello, everyone. Welcome to Interstellar Chats. This is your host, Carlene Selg, and I am so thrilled today to bring to you the amazing Natasha Black. She comes to us all the way from Australia and has an amazing story to tell us. But before I introduce you, I just want to give a quick, brief little snippet of who you are and what you're all about, and then we'll launch right into hearing directly from you and some of your experiences and how you can maybe draw people into the greater conversation, because that's this whole podcast that I'm doing right now, is bringing everyone in from all corners of the earth to just have our voices heard and really get out there and do the work. That's what this is all about, doing the work and bringing people along the way. So Natasha is a healer, a writer, and a podcaster that uses her awareness skills to carry powerful messages to the world. It is her greatest honor and passion to awaken humanity for the creation of new Earth. Welcome, Natasha.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So in that intro, you say the creation of new Earth. Can you explain just a tad bit about what new Earth is and what it means to you?
Yeah, so new Earth to me means that we're creating a new way of living. We're creating a new evolution for humanity. So clearly everything that's happening now in the past, 10, 12, whatever, how many years, we're seeing destruction, and we're seeing, more things are coming up to be healed, more things are coming up to be shown so that we can know what we need to heal. And so New Earth for me is where all the healers and just people that want to help shift humanity in a positive way, we see those spaces in what's happening in the destruction, and we see those spaces and the gaps, and that's where the healers and everyone can go in and work their little magic in their own specific way. And we do this little bit by little bit. We do it one pay it forward, one kindness gesture at a time, just starting in your little bubble. You don't have to be a healer as such, but it's just starting in your own specific little bubble with yourself and your family. And it's those things that is going to move us towards new Earth, we call it. We're just shifting out of a completely new, a completely old consciousness of fear, negativity, war, drama, all of those things. So we want to shift into a positive vibration for Earth. And
I feel you on that. I absolutely feel you on that. And I wanted to just touch on the new Earth word, like those two words together, I think causes a little bit of confusion for people. Like they're thinking something's going to break apart and something else is new going to happen. And in a sense, yes, but also it is individual as well as collective. And that's a huge piece that we have to start with us first and move out into our communities and make it more local and who we have around us. That's how we make change, right?
100%.
So,
and new Earth, it's a consciousness. We create the new Earth by shifting our consciousness.
yes,
and shifting how we react and respond to things, and how we act out of love and compassion will create a new consciousness, which is going to be new Earth. So on one level, yes, we are breaking away from this Earth, but when we say that, it doesn't mean that a new Earth is going to be physically created. Yeah. But it's a consciousness. It's you're breaking away into a different consciousness. And that's how it works.
Well, thank you. I'm glad we touched on that, because I know I've experienced people who are a little confused by that, and I just wanted to bring that out into the open, since you actually put that in your opening bio. So I'm glad that we could address it right away. But before we go any deeper into all the stuff, I want to know a little bit about you and about your beginnings maybe in your journey and your spiritual journey. Like, what was your pivotal awakening moment? And also, before we dive into that, I do want to touch upon, because, you know, it is the Halloween season, and this week, you know, there's lots of people who have experiences around near-death experiences, or NDEs, and abductions, and just different things like that that I know you've experienced as well as I. So I think that would be a fabulous conversation point for this week. What do you think?
Awesome. Sounds great.
Cool. So tell me about you.
My story begins, I was brought up as a Christian, Seventh-day Adventist, actually. And, you know, that was something that is still in my family. And so we lived that way, went to church, did all the things, excuse me. And at 7 years old, I had a near-death experience. So I suffered an asthma attack, and I fell into unconsciousness and left my body and went to the other side. And when I came back, I had all these questions about religion and all these things that just did not add up for me. A lot of things that my family, and no judgment to them, or the church, could not answer. And in fact, if anyone listening resonates with being brought up that way, if you ask too many questions, it's almost, I don't know if frowned upon is the right word, but they believe that it's a mistrust in God, you know, that you're asking questions. But for me, yes. And I was always told, like, you just have to have faith. But for me, I was always like, well, I need to have my questions answered to have faith. Like, I can't. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, I couldn't put things together. And I always desired so deeply that connection to God that people spoke about. And so years went on. We left, our family kind of moved away from the church a little bit. I fell into the world of energy and consciousness. I think the Celestine Prophecy was the first book that I read. That was about, I was about 17. And I studied massage and alternative therapies, and that was really fun. And for some reason, I still don't know why, I moved away from that. And I moved overseas, and I lived in Dubai for 6 years. I was working as a flight attendant. And while I was there, about halfway through my 6 years there, I just had this feeling. There was a few friends of mine that were going to church, and it wasn't Seventh-day Adventist. It was a different style of Christian church. And I just started to get curious again, and just started to think, I really want that feeling of God. I want that connection. And so I started going back to church, and I thought, I'm going to give this another go, but this time it's my choice. You know, so I know if there's something here, then I know it's coming from me, and I'm old enough to probably understand things a lot better these days, you know, with the age that I was. And so I went for, I'd probably say about 6 months, gave it a really good go, had the same questions, couldn't get the answers that I needed. And, you know, it's no judgment to anyone again. It's just, I couldn't quench that thirst that I had, you know, to have these questions answered, or just to fill in that gap. It just wasn't doing it for me. So then I come back to Australia and go on a big self-development era, and then naturally come into my spiritual development through that. And then it just opened up a whole world of spiritual development and deep seeking, ancient wisdom, all the things, all the esoteric things. And it's been a super fun ride. And the thing that, yeah, I started awakening when I had my first son. So that was in 2012. and I don't think that was really a coincidence. 2012 gate. And
Yeah.
yeah, ever since then, it's just been a really epic ride of answering all the questions that I ever had as a child. And, you know, I feel so free in myself. There's been a lot of deprogramming that I've had to do within myself from religion, as you probably have gone through as well. I had to, you know, rid myself of a lot of different ideas, and in the back of my mind I still for many years still thought, is there hell, you know, or what happens after this, like, is there some kind of judgment, like, you know. So it's just freeing myself of all of those things have just you know, I just feel so free and so quenched. As I was saying before, I feel really fulfilled. I know I've found my path. It ticks all the boxes, and, you know, all the questions that I have that even come up now, I can find answers for.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah.
I'm wondering if maybe we can dive into a little bit of the nitty-gritty with,
Yep.
let's just say, going back just a moment to your near-death experience. When you were on the other side, did you experience anything, anyone, any entity that maybe answered anything for you or provided you a bit of guidance or enlightenment that you knew you had to come back? Did you have a choice to come back? You know, those kinds of things that maybe we could answer.
Yeah, for sure. So when I was on the other side, I'm sure you've heard this a million times before, but it's a space of nothingness, which is nothing and everything. I like to say it. It's kind of like this vast space of just pure love. And that's the best way that I can explain it. It is light and it's everything and nothing at the same time. So when I was there, though, I remember feeling like, whoa, I feel like I'm at home. Like, this is it. I don't ever want to leave. Like, this is incredible. And when I was having that feeling, I had these entities speaking to me saying, you have to go back. And I was saying, no, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. It's nice here. Like, I don't want to go back. And that's, you know, I love to say too, like, that's an explanation of how detached you are from, you know, even your family, you know, who you love so dearly. When you're on that other side, you don't have the attachment of like, oh, I miss them so much, or it's just so different. So
It's
because
like
you
even that obligation even is kind of dissipates, right? Where you feel an obligation to protect and nourish and nurture and all those things, like whether you're talking about your parents or your siblings or your kids, that just kind of goes away because you know everything at that point on the other side is love already, and that connection can never be severed. So we don't have to worry about whether we're physically there or not.
Totally. That's a perfect way of putting that. Right? Yeah. Perfect way of explaining that. So true. So even though I pushed back a little bit, they were saying, you have to go back. You have so much to do on this earth. And even back then, I always knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how, you know, and I was thinking, I don't like studying as such, or, you know, I know I was young, but I just kept feeling like there's something here hands-on that I can do to help people. And so they were saying, yeah, you've got so much to do in your lifetime, you have to go back. Even though that was said, I still had this knowing. So it's almost like telepathic communication. I still had this knowing that I could choose.
Yeah.
So, but it was when they said to me, you have to go back because you've got so much to do, it was then that I chose, okay, if I have a purpose and there's something here for me to do and fulfill, then I'm happy to go back.
Yes.
So that was the moment where I came back. And And that was that. And yeah, there was a few days where I was just numb in the hospital, like I wouldn't respond to anyone. But during that experience, I was in the hospital hallway, and I was listening to conversations that the doctors were having with my dad.
Oh.
Yeah, and he's a super skeptic, and he said to this day, he's like, I still can't explain how you came out of like into consciousness and explain to me exactly what the doctors told me in that hallway. He said, I don't have an explanation for that. You know, so I love those stories. Like, I love it when skeptics say things like that, because it's like, yes, cool. At least you're admitting that something, you know, otherworldly has happened and it's there. So, yeah. So that was that. Then I remember coming back actually, and I didn't want to eat meat. All I wanted to eat was fruit. So very light diet. Which even in my healings now, if I do powerful energy healings, the guides are always telling me to just eat light, eat the rainbow, eat fruit, drink lots of water, and just stay light. So that was interesting.
I get those messages as well. It's so clear and abundant that
Yes.
that if our body is not being weighed down by lower vibrational food, that we can make the easier connections to the other side or to the fifth dimension or sixth dimension, what have you. And it's so much easier.
Yes.
And of course, you know, we're humans still, so we reside on this 3D. So do we dive into dessert sometimes? Yes.
Yeah.
But when we're doing the work and we're deep in it, we have almost, like you said, less hunger and less of a need to have heavier foods, because you just feel better when you're eating lighter.
Yeah, and
that connection.
Don't
you think it's to maintain that connection for as long as possible?
I do think that. I do also want to say that if your body now feels like, to anyone listening, if your body now feels like you still need meat or you still need certain things, please don't think that to get to 5D, you have to have this kind of diet straight away. Like, moving into that level of consciousness is a process. And, you know, if your body's saying you need it, eat it. And, you know, there's a lot of dogma around diets and the things that we should be doing to get to 5D. But the best messages that you can get and guidance around that is just how you feel intuitively in your body. And it's a process.
Okay, so Natasha, I have to say, I know I'm speaking to an evolved being when you say things like that, because people need to hear that just because you are eating meat does not mean that you cannot be spiritual and that you will not reach those higher states. That's total spiritual bypassing BS that needs to stop, because you will feel the shift individually when the time is right for you to make those changes and those shifts, and it will feel natural.
Yes.
Not forced.
That's what I was going to say, is as you shift your consciousness, you will naturally move into only wanting to eat fruit or whatever, vegetables or whatever it is. Go vegan if you want, doesn't matter. But yeah, exactly what you just said. It's the thing, and I like to break down dogmas within the spiritual community as well, because if we're looking at diet and the rigidity around certain behaviors, we're getting into this conditional space of earning sources or God's love.
Yes.
Like, we can only get there if we do this. Like, to me, that just takes me right back to religion, you know, to religiosity. So, you know, I know we could speak on that, and I know we've only got a short amount of time.
Yes.
But do you want me to go into my abduction? Because it is lengthy.
I would love to switch into that right now, just because I have had my own experiences off world. So I would love to hear yours.
Oh, I'd love to hear yours too.
Yes.
So forward to having my second son. I was pregnant, which I just uncovered. I wanted to have a session with a dear friend healer of mine here, and I wanted to know, was I pregnant when I had this abduction experience? And I was pregnant with my second boy. So I go, basically it felt like I was asleep in my bed, but I know I was awake, but my eyes were closed. So it's a very, I know for skeptics listening, they'll just go, oh my God, this is, total BS. But anyway, it's all good. So,
We're not listening.
yeah, so it was like I was asleep, but I know I was awake. If you're meditating and you're in that, that's what it felt like. And there was this massive beam of light, like my whole bedroom was full of light, and it was like this magnetic light. And I remember thinking, no, because I knew exactly what it was at that time, even though then I wasn't even into anything. I didn't know anything about aliens. I hadn't explored any of this before. This was totally new to me. So I do want to preface that as well. And I remember saying, no, because I was, I think on some level, probably a little bit scared. Didn't know how to frame this. And then I remember thinking, my husband's right next to me, like what's happening to him? And, or if I go, what's he going to think? So anyway, he was asleep. And then I was pulled straight into this room. It was like a cold, I would say sterile, and light. There was lights everywhere, sterile room. It was kind of like a hospital. And there was just petitions. And I know there were other people there as well in the petitions. I didn't see them, but I knew that they were there. And so then I remember having these 7 beings around the end of my bed on the right. And they were tall. They, now that I know, they were very Nordic looking, very humanoid, and they all had clipboards. And it was like they were having this telepathic discussion of, this one's doing this, or, I don't remember what they were saying, which I've still got a few sessions to explore some of those details, as time goes by. So then one of them or a couple of them come over to me, and they have this big, it was like a big syringe. It was quite long. And I was thinking, oh my God, what's this? I don't know if you've heard this you have? Okay. Yeah. So I love hearing other people's
experiences. So yours is going to be the telling of it. So yeah.
Yeah. So then they put this syringe into my belly button, and they were saying to me, telepathic, everything was telepathic. We're just going to put this into your belly button. It's not going to hurt, but it's going to feel a bit uncomfortable. And don't worry, like it's all okay. You're safe. Like nothing's going to happen. And that's what I was going to say too. When I was saying, no, like don't take me, they were reassuring me as well, saying it's okay. You're safe. And I could feel that loving presence, looking back on it now, I can feel that loving presence. And that's
incredibly important, because what you're saying is you used your discernment very early on in that exchange, because you had your free will to go, and you were using your discernment to say, okay, I am safe. I'm okay to go. And that's a very important point.
Great. Thank you for that. Yeah, it is. And so, then they put this syringe into my belly button, and it was cold. It was so cold. And they put this implant into me. And then I remember them saying, then they'd finished that procedure. And then I remember there was like an integration period. And I just remember half an hour. and they gave me earplugs with, it was like classical music, and they said, you know, just, yeah, I know, just chill out for a while, just relax, you know, just relax, just allow everything to just be, and then in half an hour you can go. And so then the next thing I remember is waiting in a waiting room, and there was someone else there. There was another human there. And I was waiting in the waiting room, like, you know, if you're in a doctor's surgery and you're waiting to leave or something like that. And then the next thing I knew, I was back in my bed. But when I came back, I felt my belly button and it was sore.
Oh.
Like, for real.
Yeah.
And so, like, this has been really important in my exploration of these topics and what else is out there, because if that hadn't have felt sore and real, I probably would have passed it off as a dream.
Right.
You know? So yeah, so that was really interesting. And then nothing even happened after that. I didn't really even explore it because I thought, I don't even know what happened. Like, this is weird, but I don't really know how to place this or what to think about it. Is it my imagination?
So can I ask you, what kind of an implant? You mentioned implant. So how do you know it was an implant, and what kind of implant?
So this is something that I've uncovered later, which I received downloads. So my NDE and abduction is linked because it was the Pleiadians. So the Pleiadians both times brought me up, and it was to awaken certain things within me to continue my path. So that's who I work with now. I channel Pleiadians, and I, you know, write and offer sessions for people, and they help me with my healings. They have told me it was an implant, and what it does is whenever I'm ready for that next activation or remembering, they tweak the implant and it unlocks my DNA, and it unlocks things for me to remember to complete my mission. So that's what it is. And an interesting thing is that I just uncovered, which blew my mind, in my last healing with my friend. As I was saying before, I was pregnant with my second son. And I uncovered that they put an implant inside me to match his level of frequency and his consciousness, because I've already been told he's going to be healing alongside me, and we're going to be working together in the future. My other son's very technical and mathematical, and he's going to be shifting awareness from that perspective. So they've already told me what the boys are going to be doing. So that was super interesting to me. So it wasn't necessarily an implant. Well, it was for me, but it was to match my son's high level frequency and consciousness for the future. So that was mind-blowing to me. That was really cool. Yeah,
that is so exciting, because I know I also work with the Pleiadians, and they are the ones who took me up as well.
Oh, cool. I'd love to hear
so
your
I'm
story.
sure we have another conversation to have.
Oh, please. I'll have to have you on my podcast.
Yes, and we can, you know, talk about all the things. But right now, I think it's super important for people to know that bringing it back to the initial contact, I say this over and over to people who are either wanting to have an experience or just calling in that experience, to be 100% aware of who you are, your sovereignty in that. You never give that power away, and you decide first and foremost, am I safe?
Yes.
Is this a loving exchange? And when you can come from a place of love and high frequency vibration, you know that it's okay to experience whatever this entity, off-world person wants to share with you.
Yeah.
And that's how you can decide that it's safe and you no longer have to be in a fear mode.
Yes.
You can let go of that fear. But if there is an ounce of fear, or you feel like you're unsafe in any way, it's your prerogative to not go, to not experience that. But with that being said, I also want to be very, very clear that the negative and regressive ET beings that were doing abductions for a very, very long time are no longer doing that. They are no longer in our solar system. They are banned. They are banished. They are baddies that have been given the boot. They've been kicked out and they are no longer allowed in. That portal has been sealed off from their ability to re-enter. So that is super, super important for people to feel comfortable. And I appreciate that your experience was a positive one, because I didn't even ask you before we started this whether or not your abduction was positive or negative, because I know people who have had very negative experiences with abductions. So I like to call a positive contact more an experience.
Right? I know. I always say, like, I use the word abduction, but I feel like that word is so loaded.
Yes.
So it's one of those things, but I love how you spoke about, you know, free will. So we do have free will. So even I had the choice to come back, right? I could have had the choice to say no. But I will say that sometimes, even if you say no, it still might happen only because you have pre-organized, pre-arranged that in your soul contract.
This is true. This is true.
But yeah, when you were saying about the negative experience, so when I had my near-death experience, I remember going through the tunnel, like walking up to the tunnel, and there were all these demons and monsters like hanging, trying to get me on the way. And I've always wondered, I wonder if I was scared to go into that space because the only frame of reference that I had for dying was I would probably go to hell. Like, I hadn't done enough. I always felt like I hadn't done enough, you know, in my religion to be good. So I always wonder that if I saw those things because I was scared to go into that realm. And I feel like I've listened to a lot of experiences, and sometimes I wonder if people have had a negative experience because they don't know how to frame what's happening. You know, I'm not negating that there are some negative experiences, because I've certainly heard some ones that aren't positive at all. But do you know what I mean? Like, sometimes in our conscious, you know, beliefs, we can possibly have a negative experience because of the way we perceive something. And that's in, you know, in this reality too, you know, everything that's happened over the last, you know, few years, you can experience it two different ways. That's where you know, choose your reality.
Yes, that's incredibly important, that we get to choose, and we no longer have these control mechanisms and programs that are being really pressed down on our vibration to keep us in that place of feeling out of control, or feeling like we're just in this rat race all the time, right? So with that level of programming being gone, we really can experience a bit of freedom and explore what freedom looks like on all the levels of getting there. So it's truly, truly a fabulous time to be alive, and to just be here and be with other like-minded people, because the masses are waking up. And trust me, Natasha, we are being called to be those leaders. You and I both, I know this. This is one of the reasons why I knew I think I have over 50 interviews lined up for the year, and you are my first one. And There is no mistake in that. I read through every single one of them and I said, I'm asking Natasha to be first.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. And honestly, all I know about you was that initial small, tiny conversation and an application to be on my podcast, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
thank you for being your transparent, high vibrational self, because I felt you from across the world.
Thank you. And likewise, I really felt your genuine, positive, uplifting energy as well. So it's a pleasure.
Likewise. So with that, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for being a part of my show. And Interstellar Chats will have you back as many times as you would like to be back.
Oh, I'd love to come back, and I'd love to have you as well on my podcast. So yeah, thank you for having me.
I also want to ask you, how can our listeners get in touch with you if they want to schedule a session or just read about you, listen to your podcast? Like, how do we get a hold of you?
Okay, so it's a bit tricky at the moment, but you'll see my LINKTREE. It's linked up with how to book a session. You can follow me on Substack, which is a blog that I write. I also do channeled writing through there. So the next one is going to be on Thursday. My podcast called Remembering on Spotify and Apple. I am rebuilding my website, so that's in the process of happening now. I am on Instagram, but I'm not using it anymore, really. I decided to remove myself off Instagram and Facebook, and probably YouTube as well. It's my thing. So I'll be on Rumble as well, which I'm starting to build that channel. So I'm kind of like building from new, all starting again, but that's okay. My LINKTREE will be in the show notes, I'm assuming.
Yes. We will put everything below on how to get a hold of you.
And people can find me through there. I do remote sessions via Zoom. So whether it's healings, readings, whatever, I offer that over Zoom as well as in person, because, quantum energy works, in any way. So yeah, so that's it. I'm very happy to be here, and I really appreciate you having me and opening up this conversation. It's super fun.
Awesome. Thank you. And with that, we will say goodbye until the next time, the next podcast. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe and do all those things. Share it with all your high vibrational, open-minded people. We would love to have you in the conversation as well. So please leave a comment, start a discussion. This is what this channel is all about. It is Interstellar Chats. It's about community conversation. So please join us. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.